In this video, let's see how to create a supersaw sound using the Novation peak. I'm going to use a Chainsmokers progression for this example. I'll tap that initialize button to set the synth back to the default setting. Now on the peak, we have this very cool feature where you can thicken up the sawtooth waveform. So in this oscillator menu, you can scroll down here and look for saw density. Let's crank that up. You can hear how rich it gets. We can also crank up the density detune. And now it's very much like a supersaw. Let's go to oscillator 2 and set this to a square shape. I know we said we're going to create a supersaw, but a little bit of a square tone would definitely help to make things a bit more interesting. Let's make this an octave higher. Now the saw density does not work for this, but we can go to the voices section and crank up the unison to 2. Now mix that back in with oscillator 1. A little bit of that square waveform in the upper register really cuts through. We can further thicken this up by bringing in oscillator 3. I'll set that to the same register as oscillator 2. Let's crank up the level. Let's hear this by itself. We can try tuning it to an interval like a fifth above. So set that to 7. So that's just oscillator 2 and oscillator 3. We can add subtle bit of detuning. That too adds to the thickening of the tone. Now bring back in oscillator 1. And now we have this rich tone. And we're making use of all 8 voices simultaneously. To make this sound wider, we can introduce some chorusing. So I'll increase this chorus level dial. At maximum you can really hear that, but I'll pull it back a bit. We can add a little bit of release on the amp envelope. So there's a little bit of tail in that sound. Now since all the 8 voices are being used up, you don't really hear any overlap there. But we can add some reverb. And that sounds a lot better now. We can add some overdrive on the filter as well as some distortion. I'll reduce that release just a little bit, as well as the reverb. Now noise is always good to layer in with your main oscillators. You don't want it to be that obvious, so I'll set it low. Now we could bring the filter cutoff down a bit and use the envelope to modulate that open. Similar pluck shape envelope. But the filter cutoff is not very low, so it's a very subtle modulation there. So that's an example of a supersaw tone mixed in with a little bit of a square as well. I hope you enjoyed that, and stay tuned for more.